What if I told you that the Tears of the Kingdom devs accidentally programmed an infinite height glitch 30 minutes into the start of the game? In this video, I want to talk about the 4 core powers of the game, how they make or break the game, and how the Tears of the Kingdom devs accidentally baked an infinite height glitch into the recall ability. It's no surprise that during development, the core powers of the game need heavy testing to make sure that the player is given just enough creative freedom to solve problems, while also not giving them too much freedom to the point where the game becomes a sandbox. For the most part, Tears of the Kingdom does a good job at balancing this. Take Ascend and Fuse for example. They're far from overpowered. In fact, you can probably get away with not using either of these powers the whole game. On the other hand, Ultra Hand, the spiritual successor of the more limited Magnesis, seemed like it'd be overpowered when we first saw the demo of Tears of the Kingdom, but luckily, and for reasons I haven't figured out, Ultra Hand ends up being not as overpowered as you'd think it'd be. Finally, we have Recall, which, when you first start the game, feels a little bit like Ascend and Fuse, in the sense that, yeah, it's convenient sometimes, but it's almost like the devs have to artificially create the situations where the power would be useful for you to even use it. So, looking at each power individually, the gameplay is balanced. And just like in Breath of the Wild, it feels super satisfying when you come up with a clever way to solve new puzzles. But what if I told you there was a technique in the game that takes the joy out of basically every shrine because you can use it anywhere and it lets you skip almost anything? That technique is what I like to call the reverse elevator. If you were to take a flat object, lift it with Ultra Hand, and then drop it, well then you've successfully picked something up and put it back down. Congratulations. But now, if you recall the object, you'll realize that you've basically created an elevator. Now, if you don't already know where this is going, it lets you gain a bit of height, but so what? Well, for one, this breaks a ton of puzzles across almost every shrine in the game. Take this shrine for example. There's a bunch going on here, and clearly the devs put a lot of effort into making this shrine. Unfortunately for them though, they also included everything we need to perform the reverse elevator just before having to do any of this nonsense. Again, to make the reverse elevator, all we have to do is think about where we want Link to be, make an object go there with Ultra Hand, bring it back to Link, and then recall so that Link can go where we want him to be. This is going to take us just high enough to get over this really big gap in this shrine and just have Link paraglide to the end of the shrine. And it doesn't end here. Not only does the reverse elevator let us skip shrines, but it also lets us skip huge portions of temples as well. Let's go to the Lightning Temple. This ceiling seems pretty high, right? Well, it is, because the devs didn't want you to skip all the way to the top of the pyramid where the boss of the temple is. But guess what we can do using the reverse elevator? That's right, skip to the boss room of the temple. Now luckily for the devs, they seem to have put a failsafe in this temple so that you have to subscribe to my channel for the boss to actually load, so that the boss doesn't actually load. But that's not the case for this next part of the game, where I realized that this was actually a pretty game-breaking glitch. In Tears of the Kingdom, before entering the water temple, we have to complete this mini dungeon to enable access to the temple. It's a pretty cool area to explore, but in an obsessive episode, I managed to skip basically the whole thing by using the reverse elevator. This is the moment I realized that there's no defending recall. If a player can skip a whole mini dungeon, then the devs clearly didn't account for something. Now, I can hear you guys in the comments already. The Wild games are known for the ability to approach the game however you want, so this is just part of the experience. But let me ask you this. Would the devs intentionally give their players access to an infinite height glitch immediately when they start the game? Using nothing more than Ultra Hand and Recall, which again the devs give us at the beginning of the game, and using any 2 platforms you can find lying around, you can perform an infinite height glitch, and here's how. If we do the reverse elevator on one of the platforms, we can elevate ourselves as usual. Now, if we use Ultra Hand on the other platform when we're about to lift off, then we get another, higher elevator for free. If we just keep repeating this, which is not hard to do at all by the way, well, take a look for yourselves.
Oh, you must pardon me. I forgot you have no way of making it up to that divine beast on your own.
Even if you still want to look past this as something Tears of the Kingdom gives players the freedom to do, it just doesn't feel right. Breath of the Wild literally lets us fight the last boss before doing anything else, but at least there's a cost to doing so. It's an incredibly hard fight. Also, unlike in Breath of the Wild, there are things in Tears of the Kingdom that the devs clearly wanted the player to see or at least learn something from that we can skip. In that shrine we skipped earlier, for example, we bypassed a really complex looking puzzle that clearly the devs clocked a few hours into, so I'm sure they wouldn't be happy that you can breeze right past it. All things considered, it feels more like the developers just forgot to properly test out the recall feature. Long story short, the reverse elevator isn't a feature, no, it's a bug. If you like this video, make sure to watch this other one where I talk about whether or not the Switch 2 can play old games like Breath of the Wild in 4K. Or this one, where I explain why Ocarina of Time speedrunners are always doing weird things like sacrificing fish and how they're actually playing with the operating system by doing so.